Peace and victory are ours, they cried joyously. But Priam's daughter, Cassandra, who was thought to be mentally unbalanced because of her dire predictions about future events, cried, "Don't you see? It's a trick." The bearded priest, Laocoon, agreed. "You are beguiled by rapture. You are fools to trust Achaeans offering gifts." "Cassandra and Laocoon are mad. The monster is harmless. Nothing more than boards and logs tied together." In the temples, the priests and priestesses burned incense, chanted, and made offerings to the gods and goddesses in thanksgiving for ending the terrible conflict that had sent so many of their warriors to the underworld. The joyous people toasted their king and the heroes of their army, the veterans, the wounded, and the revered dead who had fought the brave fight. "Hector, oh Hector, our great champion, if only you had lived to enjoy our glory. For nothing the Achaeans, the fools, attacked our magnificent city," shouted one woman, as she whirled and danced wildly. So they babbled as the wine coursed through their blood, the royalty in their palace, the rich in their large houses built on terraces, and the poor in their simple hovels huddled against the interior city walls for protection against wind and rain. They feasted throughout Ilium, making merry as if time had stopped. By midnight, the drunken orgy subsided, and old King Priam's subjects fell into a deep sleep, their befogged minds at peace for the first time since the hated Achaeans had laid siege to their city. They had erupted out of the north and east 10 weeks before, sailing across the green sea in hundreds of ships before landing in the bay surrounded by the great Ilium plain. Seeing much of the lowlands filled with swamps, the Achaeans had set up their camp on a headland protruding into the sea and offloaded their fleet of ships. Because their keels were tarred, the hulls were black below the waterline. But above it, they sported a myriad of colors according to the preferences of the various kings of the fleet. The ships were propelled by rowers with long oars and steered with large oars mounted astern. Since the ships were unable to sail into the wind, a large square sail was raised only when the breeze blew from astern. The number of crewmen varied from 120 warriors in the troop ships to 20 in the supply transports. Most were manned by a crew of 52, including the commander and a pilot. Leaders of small kingdoms formed a loose alliance to pillage and raid coastal towns up and down the coast, much as the Vikings would 2,000 years later. They came from Argos, Pylos, Arcadia, Ithaca, and a dozen other regions. Though considered large men for their time, few stood over 5 feet 4 inches. They fought ferociously, protected by cuirasses of beaten bronze, plates covering the front of the body and connected by leather thongs. Bronze helmets fit flush over their head, some with horns, some with pointed topknots, most all of them embossed with the owner's personal crest. Armor called greaves covered the lower legs and arms. They were masters of the spear, their preferred weapon, and only used their short swords when their spears were shattered or lost. Fighters of the Bronze Age seldom used the bow and arrow, considering it a coward's weapon. They fought from behind huge shields made from 6 to 8 layers of cowhide, sewn with leather thongs to a wicker frame, with the outer edges in bronze. Most were round, but many were in the shape of a figure 8. Unlike warriors of other kingdoms or cultures, the Achaeans did not use horses as cavalry, nor did they charge with chariots. They employed chariots mostly for transportation, carrying men and supplies back and forth from the battlefield. The Achaeans chose to fight on foot, as did the Dardanians of Ilium. But this was not simply a war to conquer and take over a territory as rulers. This was not merely a war for plunder. It was an invasion to gain ownership of a metal almost as precious as gold.